Self-discipline is a superpower, which I did not have. And you know what? Life was really hard. At one point, my flat was so messy and cluttered. There were thousands of letters and papers on a pile on my living room floor. It was such a mess that I lost an important work check in that pile and had to email my boss to ask for another one. I didn't exercise, diet wasn't great, and I would go to bed and wake up at all sorts of random times. I'd have all these goals, get really excited, and be very eager to get started on several at once, but after a day, 2 days, or a week at the most, I would start feeling lazy, bored, or simply wanted to give up. Something had to change. Fast forward to today, and I typically wake up before 7 a.m. during the week, meditate every day for usually 1 to 2 hours, journal at least 5 times a week, exercise or I'm active at least 5 times a week, have a cold shower most days, work in focus blocks of 50 minutes, eat, for the most part, a good, healthy diet. I'm not perfect, far from it, but it's okay. I'm not aiming for perfection. Self-discipline is a skill which can be learned. It's something which I had to learn and which you can learn as well. And because you have the benefit of this video, you can do it much faster than I did. What is self-discipline anyways? Self-discipline is defined as the ability to make yourself do things you know you should do, even when you do not want to. That sounds a little negative, so is there a more empowering way of looking at it? I define it as the skill and power to follow the rules you create for yourself. Or in other words, to fulfill the promises you make to yourself, even when you don't feel like it. Waking up early when you don't feel like it, that's self-discipline. It's the ability to act despite how you feel in the moment. You'll notice here the potential conflict. There's a part of you which really wants to do the thing and another part of you which really doesn't want to do the thing. So there's this kind of push and pull, this resistance. So in this video, I want to go through how you can overcome or at the very least minimize that resistance. 1. Leverage low expectations. If it's hard to keep even one good habit like I struggle to do, then you need to start really small. You need to have the lowest possible expectation of yourself and start really small. Once you can do that small thing really easily, then you can ramp up slowly. So for example, I wanted to start the habit of taking cold showers because I'd heard of all the amazing benefits of having a cold shower, but I was really scared to do it because I really hated the cold. So I started with a warm shower and then I finished with a cold shower. There was no way that I could get straight into it. But you know what? I made it even smaller and easier to get started than that. I started showering with cold water on just 1 foot. I know that sounds really silly, but the next day I showered with cold water on both feet. And the day after that, I showered with cold water on both feet and then both arms and then moved to like other parts of my body. You get the idea. And by the end of the week, I'd gotten used to the cold and I was able to have a cold shower fairly easily and I wasn't even scared of the cold anymore. You can use this for anything, at least initially to get you started. Make 1 sales call, write 1 line of the report, read 1 page. Make it so small and easy that it's impossible to fail. And the next day you can make 2 phone calls, you can write 2 lines or 2 pages of the report, and you can read 2 pages of the book. You can also apply this to time. Start with focusing on something for maybe 5 minutes, and if that's too much, start with 30 seconds. When you make it really small and easy, the mind doesn't resist. It doesn't feel so painful. You don't make up all the reasons in your head why you can't do it, shouldn't do it, couldn't do it, and so on. And of course, getting started is usually the most difficult bit. Once you've overcome that initial starting resistance, then carrying on is usually so much easier. A rocket uses most of its fuel to take off. It is hard to get started. Make it easier for yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself about your current level of self-discipline. Don't try to run a marathon if you're not fit enough to climb stairs yet without getting breathless. When we are self-disciplined, we have learned how to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. We need to learn this as adults if we didn't learn it as children, particularly if we grew up in chaotic households where we may have experienced a number of broken promises. We can learn to keep the promises we make to ourselves by making them small, easy, and realistic to achieve. And then after a while, we start building a track record record with ourselves, a track record of keeping the promises that we make to ourselves. And that is the point at which we are starting to become much more self-disciplined. When you first start on a goal, even once you've developed high levels of self-discipline, always leverage the power of low expectations. It will make it so much easier to get started on any goal. 2. Leverage your subconscious mind. Often, if you are not doing something, then there is some kind of fear, anxiety, or some other painful emotion that is creating resistance in your mind. This causes you to put things off, to distract yourself, and to procrastinate. What if you could rehearse things going well in your mind beforehand? By being able to see the steps clearly and the kind of outcome that you want, your resistance goes down and your ability to follow through goes up. Scientist and author Bruce Lipton suggests that only about 5% of our conscious mind is responsible for our daily decisions and actions, while the remaining 95% is shaped by the beliefs and programming stored in our subconscious mind. You can plant suggestions in your own mind to prime your subconscious mind. These are known as auto-suggestions or self-hypnosis. Once these start to sink in, you'll find yourself moving much more quickly and easily towards doing the things that you want to do. For example, I use this easy auto-suggestion for YouTube because I felt a lot of resistance. After a few days of repeating it 5 times a day after meditation with conviction, I felt there was greater internal alignment and I found it much easier and more enjoyable to work on my YouTube content. Read or repeat the auto-suggestion to yourself at least 5 times after meditation or some deep belly breathing so that your subconscious mind is clear and primed, ready to properly receive that auto-suggestion. If you would like to meditate regularly or learn to meditate, I've left a link below if you'd like to join my free online meditation group. Get your subconscious mind on side and you'll find it much easier to become self-disciplined. I use this auto-suggestion technique anytime that I want to get started on a new goal or a new habit and I want to prime my subconscious mind before I get started on it. I find that this just allows me to make the transition from where I am to where I want to be much more quickly and easily. Go for it. This is minimal effort giving you maximum results. 3. Leverage your self-discipline superhero. In Atomic Habits, James Clear emphasizes the power of shaping one's identity by focusing on habits rather than merely setting goals. By trying to become a certain type of person and establishing habits that resonate with that desired identity, the likelihood of sustaining the positive changes increase. Essentially, your thoughts, feelings, and behavior flow from your identity, that is who you think you are. When people think of themselves as lazy, a procrastinator, a time waster, or undisciplined, their thoughts, feelings, and behavior inevitably reflect those ideas of who they think they are. I remember times when I needed to be strong or to be really focused or disciplined. I would say to myself, "You're a soldier," or "go into machine mode," and pretty much straight away I would become stronger, more focused, and more disciplined. I stumbled on this hack before I even really knew what it was, but it really works. I now have a name for my inner self-discipline superhero, General Sang. The general is strong, disciplined, alert, focused, super confident, and doesn't take any BS from anybody and expects me to get stuff done. Close your eyes for a moment. See your self-disciplined superhero before you with the qualities you want. Maybe as someone who has focus, determination, power, strength, flow, confidence. Feel those qualities. Step into that superhero identity and now embody it. Feel it in every fiber of your being. On a related point, our environment also helps to determine our identity or how we show up. Going to a coffee shop to do my work, particularly in the morning, helps me to get into the right mode, and I'm not pulled into the trance of my home environment, which is super comfortable and relaxing. Create or go to an environment that is specifically designated for work, and then associate your disciplined superhero identity with that environment for maximum results. 4. Leverage discomfort. Look, you either embrace the discomfort of discipline or the intense suffering that comes with having little or no discipline. There's pain or discomfort in both cases. Choose your pain. You're supposed to be giving me easy tips. That doesn't sound easy. Discomfort or pain will always be there. Over time, the discomfort of self-discipline is much easier to handle and weirdly enjoyable too than the pain of not having self-discipline. We are wired to run away from pain and run towards pleasure. Listen, you don't start drafting that contract because it's overwhelming, stressful, makes you anxious, forces you to focus, and you probably just don't enjoy doing it. If you feel all of those things when you're even just thinking about drafting that contract, then of course you're not going to do it. Raymond Chandler used a simple writing system: write or do nothing. I find it works. 2 very simple rules. A, you don't have to write. B, you can't do anything else. I accidentally stumbled on this hack when I was about 12 or 13. I had to write a long story for school and my mind turned it into a gigantic monstrosity of a project. So much so that I resisted doing it even though I normally enjoy writing. I had to be really strict with myself and said, look, you're sitting down and you're going to get this done. You can't do anything else until this story has been written. Doesn't matter how long it takes. I really wanted to run away, but I couldn't do anything else, so I just started writing. Doing the thing was less painful than the boredom of doing absolutely nothing. Leo Babauta of Zen Habits calls this discomfort training and suggests an interval training technique. Say to yourself, you either start doing this task or you do nothing, and then set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes. Then do the thing or do nothing. Do not allow yourself to do anything else: tidying your desk, tidying the flat, answering a phone, checking an email, scrolling on social media. Absolutely nothing. Remove all distractions. You'll find it so boring that you will probably end up doing the task. But even if you don't, it's okay because you're training yourself to become much more comfortable with discomfort and not run to the nearest other thing, such as scrolling on social media. When the timer goes off, you can take a short 5-minute break. Then repeat this discomfort training again, and you can do several rounds of this. And after a few days, you will find that you are now starting to feel very comfortable with discomfort. This is also willpower training. You're training so that the power of your will is stronger than your resistance, stronger than your anxiety, stronger than your fears in the moment. If you have ADHD or just simply lots of energy, you may find it difficult to focus more than 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Do not see this as some kind of self-limitation. Just work around it. This is not a limitation unless you allow it to be. The yarn bomber is somebody who can only focus for 5 minutes at a time, and he is somebody who inspires me to no end and has managed to achieve amazing feats.
So that year, instead of pretending again that I would suddenly be able to settle down and focus on things for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time, I decided to assume I wouldn't. And so if I wanted to achieve the type of outcome that I desired, doing well in school, I was going to actually have to change my approach. And so I made a marginal adjustment. If I would get an assignment, let's say read 5 chapters in a book, I wouldn't think of it as 5 chapters. I wouldn't even think of it as 1 chapter. I would break it down into these tasks that I could achieve that would require me to focus for just 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs, that's it. I would do that. When I was done with those 5 or 10 minutes, I would get up. I'd go shoot some hoops, do a little drawing, maybe play video games for a few minutes. And then I'd come back. Not necessarily to the same assignment, not even necessarily to the same subject, but just to another task that required just 5 to 10 minutes of my attention. From that point forward, all the way through to graduation, I was a straight A student. Dean's List, President's Honor Roll, every semester. I then went on to one of the top graduate programs in the world for finance and economics. Same approach, same results.
Before I developed the skill of self-discipline, I was chaotic, disorganized, flaky, lacking integrity, lacking in self-confidence, stressed, anxious, tired all the time. The gulf between where I was and who I wanted to be and what I wanted to achieve, it felt impossible to bridge. It was painful. Now that I've developed much higher levels of self-discipline, I feel stronger, more empowered, have more of a sense of personal integrity, and I can trust and rely on myself to keep my own promises to myself. Do you want to be the first person or the second person? This is why I say that self-discipline is a superpower. I developed it, and so can you. Decide now that you will become more self-disciplined, that you are bigger than your discomfort, bigger than your distractions. Decide now that you are worthy of the goals and dreams that you want to achieve. You will not run away. Go for it, my friend. Apply these principles, they really work, and unleash that great potential that is inside of you. Of course, now you know how to get started. Do watch my video coming soon on how to stay disciplined and consistent, because that's a whole other level.